Welcome back. Now we are at that finishing point now. And so we have, just to recap, we have sewn our lining, which is beautiful, to our coat. We're going to start off closing up our jacket, and that means sewing up the sleeves, putting a little, I'm talking about the closure and hemming. But first, let's talk about the sleeve. So if you have a dress form, this is a great time to put the jacket onto the dress form. And you want to put the jacket on as though you are going to wear it, which is the right side, okay? And so I'm using Linda here as my body double to put my sleeves together. Now when you put it on your dress form, you want to make sure and check to make sure there's no twisting. Now if you don't have a dress form, it's okay. Just put the jacket on your body. And from there, you can check to make sure there's no twisting. Now, what you're checking for when you're putting the jacket on or on your body double is to make sure that the seams are together. And so right here, what I've done is just reached inside the sleeve just to find the seam. And you can just feel your finger, feel where the seam is for the lining. And you want to match that to the seam on the coat. And just put a pin where the seam is. And you want to also pin the two sides as well, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and do this on the other side, okay? So you can see what I'm doing, okay? So I'm going to turn Linda over. We'll turn her to the side. And so we have a sleeve here, okay? So whether you have this on your body or on a dummy, just lay it put it on the dummy just the way it is. Now, I have my sleeve here, and I want to put a pin right there where my seam is, okay? And this is just for me to grab it quickly. And I'm just putting a pin there because I can see where my seam is here, okay? Now, when I look on the other side, I can see where my seam is as well. That's my line, I can see that, okay? So I'm just keep those all together, okay? And again, you just want to double check to make sure there's no twisting in the sleeve. Okay, so now that I found my seam, now I'm just going to put two more pins just in case I lose another pin, that one pin there. Just put one on both sides, just that area. Because this is where we're going to grab the fabric from, right there at the seams. And I'm just putting 3 pins here just for me to grab, okay? And that looks pretty good. Now, when we are ready, once you've pinned your seams, we're going to reach inside the jacket, but you're going to reach inside where the lining and the coat comes together. So at the hem, because the hem is still open, I'm going to reach inside, right in between those two layers, lining and my coat. I'm going to reach all the way up, and my hand is right here at the top, at the cap of the sleeves, and I'm just going to keep traveling all the way down, and right there where those pins are, where we just pinned them, that's what I want to grab. I want to grab that. Now be careful not to poke yourself. And now I have that sleeve cuff right in my hand. Now I'm going to pull this inside out. So just be gentle. Remember you have pins in there. Linda, hold on to your coat now. All right. And the only thing I'm concerned about is just the cuff of the sleeve. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. So right there where those pins are, and there's only 3, this is where I want to take out those pins because they're facing, right now those seams are facing wrong side to wrong side. Now here is a close-up of the sleeve. So now we're going to go ahead and start holding this in place before we do anything. So right here is where my seam is for my lining. This is the seam for my jacket. Now the pins are on the other side, but take your time, and all I'm going to do is go ahead and take these pins out, okay? And I'm just going to set them down. Now I don't want to lose where my seams are, and I don't want them to get twisted. But I'm just going to hold this in place as I'm removing the pins. There's only 3 in place. Here's the 3rd one. Now, what I want to do is making sure that when I put these 2 seams together, here's my lining, here's the jacket, that these seams are matching up seam to seam, right side to right side. I'm going to repeat that again. When I remove the pins, I want to make sure that the seams are matching, the lining and the coat, that they're matching and they're facing each other, right sides to right sides. Now that I have that in place, let's go ahead and repin this. So again, putting a pin right there at the seam. And now I'm just going to go all the way around the cuff of the sleeve, just pinning this in place. Okay, so now I've come to the tail end from where I started and now I ended. And I have quite a few pins in here, okay? Again, the lining and the jacket are pinned together at the cuff. And this will feel a little weird because the sleeves are still connected to themselves and it's inside out. But just go ahead and pin it all the way around. Now, if you feel like you're struggling with the pinning, only pin half of it. It's okay. You can pin just this part here, which you see, and sew that, and then come back and readjust the sleeve and bring it out and repin again and sew, okay? But whatever is easy for you. All right, so now that I've pinned this, we're ready to go ahead and start sewing. All right, so now that I'm at my sewing machine, and I know that this area is going to be a little tight, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the arm on my sewing machine, okay? Let's set that aside. And I want to start where the seam is, so I'm just looking for where the seam is. There we go. I'm just pulling it out. Bingo. Because that's going to help me know where I started and where I'm going to end at, okay? So what I'm double checking to make sure that I'm not catching any lining or any of the other part of the jacket. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the sewing machine, making sure I'm not catching anything other than the cuff. I'm going to start about right here, and I'm just using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, okay? Now I still have my pins in place, and I'm going to go ahead and bring my needle down because I want to lock that in place. I'm just shifting my wristlet over to the other side so it's easy for me to remove my pins. And so all I'm doing is just double checking. I'm going to clean this up later, okay? But clean up if you need to. Okay, now I am ready to sew. And this is a slow sew. Take your time. You're going to sew to your pins and not over your pins. And you're going to and readjusting, just constantly double checking, making sure you're not catching anything. Sew to your pins and not over them. And just take your time. Just take your time. And I'm just constantly just readjusting. And just checking. And before you know it, you'll be off to the other side before you know it. Oh, I see my seam. It showed up. Yeah, there we go. And again, before I close this out, I want to go past, at least an inch past my starting point. All right, that looks good. Let's bring that up. Remove that. And let's check that sleeve. All right, so here we are with the sleeve. I just finished sewing the lining to the sleeve. And now it's time for us to push this part back into the coat, okay? So I'm going to flip this to the right side. And I know it looks a little crazy, but this is my right side of my jacket. Here's my lining. Okay, I can tell from the seam. Now I'm going to reach in and pull my sleeve out. Keep pulling. Again, this is the right side. Oh, look at there. And I see the lining. Look at that. And it's sewn. How nice is that? Now, once you go ahead and push it out and everything, and go ahead and expose those seams, okay? Because you want to take this to the pressing, to your station, wherever you're pressing, and go ahead and iron this out, okay? And making sure that the lining is at least, I would say, 1/4 inch flushed into the inside, so you don't end up seeing your lining while you're wearing your jacket. You can also top stitch this in place as well. So I'm gonna leave that to you, whether you want to do 1/2 inch or 1 inch top stitch. It's really up to you. I think it just gives it more, just a beautiful detail. But that is your sleeve. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So let's move on to the next part. Because I've decided to put buttons on my coat, on my jacket, I need to interface that area, okay? And so this is the front, as you can see right here. This is my front, and this is the hood here. So if you do this, in your packet, you have something that says front facing. Because of the coat, the jacket that I did, I'm going to need to interface this. So you'll just use the front facing for your interfacing. And I cut 2 pieces, okay? And you want to follow the manufacturer's instructions as far as how to press interfacing, whether you're using fusible or sew-in interfacing, okay? So let's go ahead and turn this to the inside, okay? So I'm gonna open this up. And I want to, right there where the lining and the facing right at the front meets. So I'm just pulling this out. Okay, that's my pocket. Here's my lining, here's my front piece. Beautiful. And I'm just gonna lay this flat down. This is where I wanna put the interfacing, okay? So you wanna go ahead and press this about, I say about 2 strips out, and just press this out. Press, 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 press. And you wanna place your interfacing. I'm just gonna take this off of this. That's just your pattern piece. And you want to go ahead and fuse it. Now, depending on the kind of fusible you may have, mine is that bubbly kind. I want to fuse this bubble part, the texture part, to the garment, okay? And so I would press this in place just like that, okay? Press, 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 okay? And if you have any extra, just trim it off. Now, I've done the other side, so let's look at that. So again, right there where the lining meets the jacket, right at the front, this is the other side. And as you can see, I've already pressed the interfacing to this area, just that front area. Again, needs to be stabilized for any of that, any buttons or any other closures that you're gonna have. You'll need to put interfacing in there, okay? All right, so now that you've interfaced both sides, let's talk about hemming. Woohoo, we're almost at the end. So since this is already on the wrong side, I'm just gonna turn my hem in place, okay? And so right now at the top, I have my coat and my lining is here. And I just wanna lay those as flat as possible, okay? And what I also wanna do is make sure that I am matching the raw edge of my jacket to the raw edge of my lining as well. So I'm gonna start from one end and pin all the way across. Now, I need to leave an opening to turn my jacket inside out. I like to leave mine literally in the center, okay? No bigger than my two hands, okay? So as I get closer in, I'm gonna start to stop and leave this part open, pick it back up again here, and then come all the way down and repin, okay? Once we've pinned it, you're going to go ahead and sew it all the way across, leaving that opening in the center. Once you leave it in the center, we're going to turn our coat inside out. All right, now here we are at the finish line, and I have sewn my jacket to the lining, as you can see, right at the bottom, and I left an opening right in the center. So before you turn it, we have these corners here. We want to go ahead and trim them up because they're going to cause some bulk, especially if you've put interfacing in there, okay? So I just want to trim this off just about 1/4 of an inch, okay? And I want to do that for both sides. Now it is time for us to turn our jacket over. So right in that opening, let's turn everything inside out. So you're going to reach in, literally, and pull everything out. And watch the magic. Yay! I'm so excited. And the weather is perfect for my jacket, so I'm really eager to wear it, like ASAP. If you pop a few stitches, it's okay. It's just in the hem, okay? All right. Now, if you have a chopstick, this is a good time just to take that chopstick all the way around, starting from that bottom hem. And I'm just gonna use my finger here and just massage those corners, okay? And that's the bottom hem. Beautiful. I'm just gonna shake this out a little, get the sleeves together. Do the same thing for the other side. All right. Now again, this may take you a minute just to get everything back to its original state, okay? So let's go back to that hem. So here we are right here, and here's that opening. So you want to go ahead at this point, go ahead and press or pin that opening closed, okay? Now, it's up to you if you want to top stitch this in place or if you want to hem this by hand. I'm going to let you decide that. But for me, I'm going to press it, and guess what? I'm going to do a top stitch all the way across the bottom, okay? That's what I'm going to do, just to finish it off. Now, with the hem being finished and in place and everything is done, let's talk about those buttons. I plan on using some really, really large buttons here, some really, really large buttons. And I'm using self-cover buttons, which are here. So I'm gonna take some of my extra fabric and I'm going to cover these with some of the strips that I have left over. Once they are covered and everything, I'm going to just go ahead and start deciding where I want to place these, and I want to mark these. So I'm going to take one and put it probably about 1/2 inch from the top of that seam where the hood meets the jacket itself. So about 1 inch down. So I'm going to place one here and then probably come down another 2 to 3 inches and another 2 to 3 inches. And I'm just gonna play with this with my eyes just to see where I want those buttons. But it's really up to you how you want to space your buttons out, depending on how big or how small your buttons are. So there's no rule. You can use 10 buttons if you like. You can use 3, you can use 6. It's really up to you. But just space them evenly using a ruler or just by eye, whatever looks good to you. But I kind of like this, and I might go with that. I like to keep my bottom part of my jackets open because I do a lot of, I'm getting up and down a lot, and I just like my things to be really functional. So I like a really large opening at the bottom where nothing is catching my legs. So I like to keep my buttons really closer to the top. But I really like this. So once you get to that point, mark it, and you're gonna mark both sides and go ahead and make your buttonholes and sew them in place. So thank you for joining us for the Nyla Jacket. We had so much fun. If you have any questions or concerns, just reach out to us. Again, we can provide you with all your sewing needs. Please, we hope to see you in our next sew along. See you then.